All right, we have another Network Marketing Warfare podcast. Again, I want to keep these as very fun, natural, organic conversation. I don't want to sell people on anything. We're not looking to wind up. We're not looking really to promote the industry outside of just really what it is and having fun with it. I'm Dominic Izzo. If this is the first time you're listening to the podcast, this is the Bull of MLM Network Marketing Warfare podcast. The purpose of this is to highlight the industry. This has just been explosive over the last 24 months, critique the industry, improve the industry, and if you're in the industry, really kind of give you a sense of this is a positive direction you should be going because there's so much naysay out there. And at the same time, too, if you're trying to make a decision whether or not you should get in the industry, we want to offer you information on discerning, on just whether or not this is the industry for you. It's as simple as that. My guest today, Ricky James. I got to read your intro because I want to do this properly, if you don't mind. For those who don't know, I need cheaters now because I got older. This is really ridiculous. I don't know how old you are, but it's going to get worse if you get older. All right. So I asked Ricky James. I came across her content on social media. Rebelricky.com is her website. And I looked at her content and I'm like, all right, this is a person who's got positive energy. And I said, would you want to do a podcast? She said, yes. So I'm going to wind up telling you exactly a little bit about her. She's going to introduce herself in her own words. And we're going to have a fantastic conversation today. Ricky James is a wife and mom of 8. Authored and a chapter for Jordan Adler's Momentum Maker book series. Blogger at rebelricky.com, speaker, entrepreneur. You're a top industry leader and sits on the Diamond Council. We're going to talk about that. You completed Joe Dispenza's Unlimited Progressive and Intensive courses. You can hear about that too. A new Vision and Access Hannah Holistic Practitioner. And I got to pronounce this one right. You train at the Hippocratic Institute in the Professional Coach and Lifestyle Training Program. That's a lot that you've done.
It is. And, most of that has been in the last few years. Most of what I learned was self-taught. So I've been in the holistic health and wellness for 17 years almost. It was my first passion, and it's what led me into direct sales. I've only been in direct sales a little over 6 years. So, but I started with just it actually for my family. And yeah, I have 8 kids, which is kind of wild. My youngest is 1 and my oldest is 19.
And you still find time to do all this.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And we've always homeschooled and I'm super outside the box, which is probably why direct sales was right. Like why I love it so much. Part of why I love it so much. But yeah.
All right. So we have to get into this. We know that the network marketing industry, I want to hear about your experience, the good and the bad. I've talked about my bad in the beginning where the first several years it was, we used to leverage pain points and we used to leverage hey, Ricky, you've got 8 kids. You don't have time for anything at home. And, you've got to we need to really put money in your pocket. Like if this was years ago, I would have tried to capitalize off of all of your hardships, right? I would have just listened to what you say and then I would have turned it against you. And we've seen that that's what the industry really does. It truly preys on the easily emotionally manipulated. How did you wind up getting involved in the industry 6 years ago? And again, if you have 8 kids, we have to establish something. You don't have time. You're homeschooling.
Right.
You don't have time. This is a fantastic conversation to be had with somebody who I bet you can leverage that to anybody who says, Ricky, I don't have time to do this business.
Right. Right. No, and I did not build my business the way you do. I've built mine very differently from the beginning. Because I was so all into holistic health, which by the way, if you want to heal your eyesight, check out, I have a blog on that and we can reverse it if you want to.
Really?
Yeah, really. You can reverse anything. So that's what I have immersed myself with in the last 17 years. I was at the very first Truth About Cancer live symposium. It's been my passion to help heal people and really just empower people to think differently, mainly with children, and just take responsibility for your own health, right? That's what I loved. And I very freely shared this information for years before I was in direct sales. People would call me and my husband actually would joke all the time, if we could make money off of what that'd be great because you're like giving your time freely to people. And that was something, so my story is that my son had a reaction at 2 months old to his vaccines. He's 17 now, almost 17. It turned my life around. I started researching, realized the hell that big pharma is, and turned and ran the other way. And so since then, a little fun fact. So I have 8 kids, like I said, and 0 meds, 0 asthma, allergies, like nothing. We have nothing. Nobody even wears glasses because this has become my passion, right? And my passion was to help other parents do the same thing. So I very freely gave at the very beginning of this, when my son was essentially saved. I said a prayer over him that day. It was a horrific situation, which is a story for another day, but he was saved. God saved him. And I, both from that moment on, every day when I wake up, my prayer has always been, bring me people that need me. And in reverse, bring me to people that I need, right? And so that has been what he's done. Like every day. I also prayed for wisdom passionately. And I know that when you pray for wisdom, it's given to you abundantly. So from day one, my researching and everything, I just passionately shared it. And universally, you cannot outgive God or the universe. The more I put out, the more came back to me. So the minute I started in direct sales, it was like everybody around me was like, yeah, I'm getting on. You helped me freely for 10 years. You think I don't trust you? And they jumped on. So it was my philosophy to my team, everyone under me, is you put other people first and you will grow. And so that's what I've always done. And I try to teach my team to do that. If you're genuinely trying to help people and bring them a solution and empower them, very likely you will become successful as well as your people. And people will trust you,
I'm
right?
going to be taking notes on you because you're putting out so much stuff. Now, I want to ask you a bunch of things that critics would ask you, and I want you to to not so much counter them, but to justify them. You gave away value for 10 years for free. And was that based out of like a guilt or a poverty mindset? Because I'm a Christian, but I come from the Catholic background.
Absolutely.
Which
yes.
for me, it was. My first business I owned a gym for 3 years that closed because I would have people come in and say, I can't pay tuition this month. Come on in and train. I was a horrible businessman. And I thought and it did benefit me in life, right? Because I gave so much away that, a couple students here and there throughout the years have done stuff for me. Say, hey, you always took care of me. Let me take care of you.
It's not those students though, Dominic. It's what you created universally that came back to you later in life. It doesn't have to be right away. And yeah, of course I can look back and see that, had I started in something earlier that I maybe could have leveraged this, but I genuinely believe, and same thing I teach my people, like everything belongs, every piece of my story, every hardship, the amount of time it took. Like so often we want to just jump to the end, right? And we're missing all of those good nuggets in between. And so I love that part of my story. I love that, for years, I even attracted the sick people. Well, when you're trying to build a business, attracting the sick people is not the best way to go. So, that was a big growth moment for me a few years ago, is realizing, okay, I got to up my game and start, attracting people who want this as much as I do. And so I did, right? That's where a lot of the other trainings and stuff come in, right? Of upping, changing your subconscious and changing your mindset and working on all of that, right? Because that's such a huge piece of all of direct sales. You just have to be able to level up in that. So yeah, that I did. And when I did, my business also grew.
So I want to talk about that for a second. A couple different things. The anti-MLM community loves to attack people who leverage their faith, right? And network marketing does seem to attract a lot of people of faith. And there is something about it where when you talked about you can't outgive God, I really don't leverage my faith at all when it comes down to network marketing. But I do know, because I had to talk to a friend of mine years ago, because I did massively suffer from the poverty mindset. And a buddy of mine's a very wealthy man out on the West Coast, very big, successful entrepreneur, military, one of the guys with just this incredible degree, engineer. And he goes, go get your Bible. And I'm like, okay. Well, he goes, open it up to Malachi 3:10. And I came from Catholic background, which was always Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, that's it. Malachi 3:10 is the last chapter of the Bible, right? It's Malachi, and it says, and I'm going to paraphrase it, that God's the only scripture that God says, challenge me in this. And he says, tithe properly, and he restores you. I'm like, oh my God, it's literally an instruction in there. talk about balancing your faith with business, because what I'm very curious is, how do you go from a mindset of being a very kind woman who gives, and now, I mean, was there any guilt with saying, all right, now I want money, now I want to create money? Because that is a problem for a lot of us. A lot of us come in and we do not want to seem disingenuous, and we all say, hey, I really want to help people, and we feel guilty about making the 6 figures plus a year.
For
How
sure.
did you come to terms with that?
So, number one, I don't talk about my faith at all either. So I mean, like on my website or anything, because I want to attract everyone, and I don't want to be preaching to the choir or just attract people of my beliefs. Like I want to literally embody love and generosity, and so that's part of it too. Though yes, there are times in our life we did struggle. We have given very, very generously, like freakishly generously for years, long before network marketing. And it has made us very successful. And we've crashed and burned a few times from a very young age, because I graduated when I was 16, and then I met my husband. I was 17 when I met him. We got married when I was 18, actually. We had our first daughter when I was almost 20. Anyway, so we, did it all, everything fast and crazy, but we generously gave long before direct sales. So I don't know, I've always taught my people that as well. But I rarely talk about anything religious. This is the only, and again, you could say universal law, natural law is if you give and what you put out does come back to you. And was there an element when I first started that was really hard to get over, that I was making money on people? Yeah. I mean, it is. And again, that's where all of that, that's a self-worth thing even though, right? You've got to know that you're worth it and that what I have to offer is real. Not only that, but it was really easy for me when I came into this. The money was not, and even still, my husband still, even though I make a ridiculous amount, he still makes more. So my money was always secondary, and that has given me a really great perspective on direct sales, both good and bad, right? When I'm able to make decisions and look at things and really see them for what they are. And I've seen that, especially because I'm in health and wellness. I've seen people suggest supplements that's not even what you should be on. You should be on something that I'm not making anything on. And so I'll tell you another story. I was very successful in the first company I was in, but I switched companies right when my daughter turned 18. It was just a crazy thing that happened. It was time. And when the first company I was in, I was always in trouble with the other like Jules, because I would answer any question people sent me. And what I mean by that is someone would ask me something health wise, or, like my granddad has cancer, or my daughter had a vaccine reaction, or whatever. If it's something that I can answer within, 60 seconds, that would take them days of research, like I do that. Again, this is, almost my mission statement from the very beginning of when my son was healed, of like, send people to me. I don't care who they are. I don't care if they're on my team. So that's what happened. I answered questions. I had no idea who any of these people were, whether they were on my team, not on my team. It didn't matter. So then when I changed companies, the same thing that happened to me happened when I started direct sales. All of those people, I didn't know. I just knew I was called somewhere differently. And I knew I had to do this if we were going to even grow my daughter. And I had no idea. It was a huge risk. And oh my God, people came, and I went to the top rank of that company within 4 months, like massive growth. And then my daughter helped her build her business. So again, 18 years old, the best thing you can do for your kid is sign them up in direct sales and then help them and teach them, right? And so same thing, she's had incredible success, very steady success for the past, year and a half, which has done nothing but good for her, being that you go to any of these events, all you're learning about is personal development and perseverance and stepping outside of your comfort zone, right? So she's an incredible woman. And to know that it's a relief even for us as parents to have her set up so young, right? anyway, I'm not sure where I even started on that ramble, but
No,
that's
you're
right.
putting a lot of information out there because now I'm going to ask. Graduate at 16, meet your husband at 17, get married at 18, first kid. You are very structured. There's no messing around in what you do. Why? So if that's your personality, and your personality is you know what you want. Most human beings, and we're 16, 17, 18, our head is in the clouds. So now all of a sudden, if you're a natural born leader from that position, we know that not a lot of people who are older than you are going to listen, take you seriously because of your age specifically, right? What made you get involved in network marketing to where to be successful, you have to be a leader versus just taking your skill set, your drive and ambition into a traditional, 9 to 5 or something else? Why did you go in one of the riskiest industries there is?
Well, it wasn't necessarily on purpose, but my kids were my first. And so I knew that whatever I was going to do, it sure wasn't going to be anything that was going to take me away from them for extended periods. And I've always thought outside the box. There's no way that I don't know that I could have a boss. I don't think any of us really want a boss, but there's no way I could have a boss. So getting to create something that it's really important for me to be authentic, which is probably part of the reason I was always drawn to you and a lot of your posts. Like authenticity is what this industry needs. More than anything, I think that the reason we have such a bad name is because people are not authentic and genuine. So the place that I could create something of my own, right, and be who I'm meant to be and share my gifts with the world and help my people share their gifts with the world. I don't know any other industry that you can do that.
So talk about your methodologies. You get in, talk about the first couple of years. How did you feel? Were there times where you felt like quitting, or you seem like somebody that just listening to you, everything seems like very organic and natural. And it's like, oh, this woman can dip her toe in horse shit and it's going to turn to gold. That's how you come across. But
I do. I know.
did you
And
ever
you know what?
struggle?
Yeah, of course. Of course. I think it's just that I don't stop and gripe about it. That's always been, whether it's my kids or my animals, people have always said, oh, well, you have perfect animals like my pets. I'm like, you think I didn't work to make them mine or whatever, right? Or staying in shape after however many kids. Like this takes a lot of work to stay in shape and be healthy and to keep my kids healthy. Genetically, I don't have good genes. All four of my grandparents died early. Parents on both sides like have all kinds. So you'd think my kids would be all sick genetically, right? I chose something different. And it's a choice we make every single day. And I choose to look on the bright side of a lot of things versus, being negative. Everything you do takes work. Do I have a very strong mindset? And when I set my mind to something, I'm going to do it. Yeah, for sure. But it doesn't mean it was easy. And we're talking about those first few years. So I tell this to people a lot too. Like, look, if you're starting in this industry, especially if you're a woman or you're a mom, because all I had done for that, we owned a couple of businesses, like brick and mortar businesses from a very young age too. I was 19 years old and signed a residential lease for cell phones. We did cell phones. But other than that, like I had been a mom. And at that point, when I started, I had 5 kids. And they were my life. They were everything to me. And I didn't want them to be second, but I also, I'm made for more as well. Like I have gifts to share. So I don't want to be just a mom, and I want to empower my kids even, right, to follow their dreams. So when I started, I actually sat down, my husband and I sat down together and we said, okay, what are some ways in our life that we can bend to make this work for us? I think so many people don't do that. And then when they get in, and this is hard work and there are things they have to sacrifice, they're kind of shocked by it. Whereas from the very beginning, we made sacrifices. And we said from the beginning, okay, let's see where we are in 1 year. And honestly, I would tell people 5, because statistically, 85% of people who stick with this 5 years make it pretty close to the top. So for sure, 5 years, where else can you make this kind of money? But we said together 5 years, and what are some things that we can like cut back? Or, for me, I was used to cooking every meal from scratch, again, clean, organic, that's my jam. So we we had more like organic pizzas or organic hot dogs or things that were easier that they could do. There's little things like that. I didn't, and I made my time with my kids very, like bedtime was important, where we were hugging, praying together, like things like that were important. But overall, the thing, I did not watch TV at night, like where we used to watch programs or something before we went to bed. Like that was instead taken up by, I read personal development books. I mean, every single night for the first, and I still do, right? That's what I love. So those little things that I gave up, and we knew between us that this was what was going to happen. And hey, you're going to have to do some, Zooms throughout the week or whatever, and letting our kids know that so that we all knew what to expect. And I will say that first year we laughed a few times. We would look at each other and he would say, shit, you worked a lot to have made that, right? And, but then the minute you hit that Joel level, it flips. And now it's like, you make what with the amount of time you work, right? Like that flip is so worth it. So just knowing your goal, and just being persistent, right? And loving every minute of it. I mean, there were people that I impacted along the way without it always showing. Like I do think back to the very beginning, and I'll say, especially being in this industry now this long, the one thing I had going for me that I don't think very many people do, I had seen a couple of my friends go to the top in the company that I was at. They went to the top, and I knew them before. And then I knew them when they were at the top. And I literally, from the beginning, I was like, oh, cool, they did it, I can. So from the first day I started, I genuinely felt like a Joel. I mean, that was it for me. Like it wasn't, I never felt like lowly. I felt like I was already there from the beginning. And now all the mindset training I've done, I know how key that part was. Anyway.
Yeah, this is good stuff. When you bring people in, because those who try network marketing fail. Right? They're the ones who come in. They're the 85% who fail from the beginning because they did it for a couple of weeks, didn't see any results. 3-4 months passed by. How often are you doing this? Well, I'm making a call here and there. They didn't take it seriously. So am I right in saying that because you saw your friends go through this before, because you come from a background of being very structured, because you run a household of, your husband, 8 kids, that you took this business seriously from day one?
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
right,
that's important. Yeah. So when people come in, what kind of conversation do you have when they say, hey, Ricky, I've seen your stuff. I want to be on your team. Do you have a conversation with them and say, hey, listen, do you ask them what they want out of it? Or how do you wind up managing your team? Because that's the hardest part, is getting people to see the same vision and passion you do.
Yeah, it is. And I've come to grips with that too, right? Not everybody wants what you want, and meeting people where they are. Sometimes people only want $500 a month, and that's genuinely all they want or need. And so I love all my people the same, and I support them all the same. And I really think my team would even agree on that they feel very loved by me. I love them so much, and I'm there for them. And I help them, all the time. And I'm there for when they want to level up. Not everybody wants to. And because I'll say some parts are a struggle for me in training, even because when you grow so organically like I did, sometimes that can be difficult to teach, right? So that's been a little bit of a struggle of knowing like, hey, look, it looks like, especially with the company I'm with now, it looks like I made it to the top in 4 months, right? You didn't see the first 4 years, and then even the first 10 years before that, right? So just trying to help people understand that, we're all in different chapters, but the basics of it are, if you continue to genuinely help other people, then keep your belief high. And that's something, you have to work on every day, whether that's, because energy is contagious. Energy, there's nothing more contagious than energy. So if you're talking to people and you're sharing and your energy is low, it's, you're not going to have good results. So there are certain things that I try to train people to do to change their energy daily. 5 minutes, the most crucial 5 minutes when you wake up and before you go to bed, minimum 5 minutes have to be spent in gratitude. So much gratitude, right? So that and then I would slowly extend that throughout the day, where it's not just those 5 minutes and 5 minutes, but it's throughout the day, to where At any given moment, you can stop and genuinely find a place of intense gratitude for everything around you, where you are, your business. And that alone is pretty life changing for people if they can get that right. Because people just get stuck in and you were asking at the beginning it's such a self-worth thing when we think when you don't want to sign people because it's helping you, right? So genuinely helping people every day build their belief in whatever it is you have to offer. If you don't genuinely believe that what you have brings value to people, then it is fake and it's not going to attract anyone. But if you can shift that energy to where you genuinely feel and know that what you're doing is making a difference and that what you have to offer can change people's lives, people will come to you. And that's what people are missing.
Can you talk about that for a second, even in more depth, because you're so accurate on the belief aspect of it. It's like driving a car, right? You feel differently driving a car at 40 than you do at 16 because you believe in your abilities. And it's just when you believe in your ability to drive the car, you navigate it towards the potholes and the falling construction with ease because you're just very confident. You could drive on ice, rain, snow, doesn't make a difference. In this business, I didn't understand that the belief, if you don't know what the industry is, if you don't have passion in it, passion with your company, you're not going to believe it. Your energy literally will repel people. I felt the difference to where like, all right, I got to make my calls, this and that, versus when you change that mindset and adopt an attitude of gratitude, it literally makes you more pleasant and you feel genuine and you don't pressure or sell people. Our job is to what we do. We do 4 things: contact, invite, show up, plan, and follow up. It's the simplest business model in capitalism, but that gratitude and that attitude is so key. So people just glance over that. How many seminars have you been to? You got to believe, you got to be gratefulness. But how important of an anchoring is it to do, or changing state, especially coming from a woman who does as much as you do? How do you stop yourself in the middle of the day with all the chaos? You have 8 individual children who need different things. They're dynamic, they're free-willed, husband, business, all your team members. How do you find yourself to become that center of gratefulness in order to give again?
Yeah, well, it becomes a habit after a while. And it's honestly, the more you practice it, the more that just becomes second nature. It's honestly much harder for me to fall into, negative than it is to stay in that grateful, positive. It does happen, but and remembering that the shift isn't overnight. It takes 15 positive to counter 1 negative. So remembering that this is going to take practice, creating that feeling even that's in you, which super simple tips on that. Like if you close someone or you sign someone or you do a Zoom and you come off that Zoom and you're so pumped, or you had an incredible conversation with someone and you're really pumped, turn right around and message your people or chat with your people that you want to close, or your chicken list, or whatever it is that you want to call it, because that is when you're likely to have the best results, because you're already so naturally high and excited, right? But I try to tell people that, like, please don't even talk about it if you're going to be in the dumps. Like, if you're having a bad day, just keep your mouth shut, because you're going to end up doing more harm than good. Other little ways to build your belief, read some testimonies, whether that be on your products, whether that be on the business, right? Like, who do you know that has succeeded in your business that was a school teacher and now she's a whatever, right? And get excited about that to turn around and share with other people. That was something I did a lot with people too, and helping them catch the vision. From the beginning, I would send people like a testimony of someone that reminded me of them, both business or health wise. I would send it in directly, like, this reminds me of you, so that they can see that success again, whether that be through health or through the success of the business themselves. And it always made them feel good because it was genuine, and it was a personal touch, right? It wasn't some sort of blanket message or anything. It was genuine, right? And that was a very successful way to talk to people to be when they came to me asking, what can you do for me? A lot of times, because people don't jump in right away, it takes 6, 7 exposures or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Then what you might do is send them something like that. And again, you're building your belief using third party, right? And you're building their belief at the same time. So those are little things that we have done that have been successful too.
What are some of your success tips if you're contacting 6, 7 times? We know that's what it is with like normal marketing, right? You have to have that flyer sent in the mail 6 or 7 times before you go, oh, look, here's Acme Lawn Service. I didn't know they do this. You're not going to be hounding your people 6 or 7 times, right? What are you specifically doing? Because I know the answer for everything you do is you're giving people value. You're giving value. What is something that you do it's all that many times you get people finally feeling it? What they're doing is they're feeling your energy and they're like, I really want to partner with this woman. What are some things that you do?
Well, so this is what I teach. Like what I just told you is what I teach. When I switched companies even, I mean, it had been years before that. I had not personally contacted anyone. People come to me. And it's been that way for years. And then, of course, once you build an online presence, that's really what brings them to you. So there's 2 different ways in network marketing. There is what we kind of had at the beginning when I first started in direct sales. Of course, I contacted everybody that was close to me that I knew. Absolutely, that's what I did. But after being in the business and creating that online influence and that where people believe in you and all that, it became to where, right, people just come to you. And again, that's that magnetic energy thing too. The more you put that out there, the more that comes. But hey, that's not overnight. That took me years, right? So in the meantime, you've got to do exactly, what I did at the very beginning, which was what we're talking about. It is reaching out to the people that you love and being authentic, being genuine. I can't stress that enough. And also, like, getting out of your head, becoming very detached from the outcome, right? It doesn't really matter if they say yes or no, and not really caring about that as much. We say that all the time too, right? Mm-hmm. Like whether you're just have a cup of coffee, you're offering someone, do you want this? No? Okay, cool. And because that posture is also extremely attractive. Like, if you're like, hey, do you want to do this? And they're like, no. And you're like, okay, cool. And then they're like, well, hang on.
Right. You're taking it off the table. Yep.
Yeah. Maybe I did want that. Right. But I'm not messing with people. That's not me messing with people or playing games. That's genuine. Like, I'm going to do this with or without you. Like, I'm going to be successful with or without you. Do you want to come with me? I'll be with you the whole way. And letting people, like, when I started social media, I had 50 Facebook friends, 50. I had no idea what I was doing. I was totally in my own head and was super embarrassed to even post anything, right? Like, it took practice. But where do you ever start any job without having some sort of training, right?
Please don't come on this podcast that makes sense. Please just don't speak logic. That doesn't make sense. Aren't you supposed to just open up a brick and mortar tomorrow and make $1 million in 6 months?
Right. Right. No, it takes practice and training everywhere. So my biggest thing I tell people is if you would just go fail, please just go fail, like right away, and make it your daily goal to fail. I tell my kids that, right? If you're not uncomfortable, then you're doing something wrong. Like, get out there and be uncomfortable, and try to find instances to make yourself uncomfortable, because we're so clueless to that as humans, pampered humans, especially in the States, right? Like, we're comfortable all the time. And so get out there, become uncomfortable, and just be good at failing. The only difference, like you said earlier, between those who succeed in this business and those who don't is because we were willing to fail over and over, right? That's what we got good at so that we could be even better at what we do now. So get out there and fail over and over and over again. And every time you fail, you're that much closer to doing it right, if you will.
Yeah, I want to ask a question that's kind of meld into things. I like solving problems, right? I want to hear what your views are for duplication, because we've seen it for years, right? The business is all about duplication, but what people don't say is duplicate the business, not the person. And
Yeah.
I had a hard time with that for a long time because I had people who were my uplines in a company I was with who were very successful saying, you're going to have a hard time building your business because of the way you dress, the way you speak. Oh, you can't duplicate that. And I went, well, I might as well give up now, right? Until I
Yeah.
came across, and I give her credit all the time, Jessie Lee Ward, who is not duplicatable. I had a couple
Mhm.
conversations with her, and I'm like, all right, it's the system we have to duplicate, not the personality. That being said, there's manipulation and there's influence. A lot of people, when they can't find or discover their personality for the business, which is sales, you do have to talk to people. You have to care about people. You have to give people. They manipulate, right? You're influential. You successfully duplicated this model in your daughter. Well, we could maybe chalk that up for genetics, right? Because she comes from you. She's going to have your strength, your will, all this. How do you now pass on the mindset for duplication when it comes down to your team? Because I'm sure you've dealt with, I don't have the time. I'm not built for this. I only have 50 friends. It's negative, 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 negative. I could picture you being kind, but not nice. So
Right.
how are you delivering that in your duplication process with your team?
Yeah, well, having a good system is huge. I mean, just like you said, we have groups, we have Zooms. The Zooms are there every week. A few of them are going all the time. You just get people to them. That's literally all you have to do, right? So making that process as simple as possible so that people can um, duplicate. I mean, you have to have it. If you don't have that in your business, it's going to be very, very difficult. But just like you, yeah, I struggled because there were years people were like, dude, I don't know what you know. I can't do what you do. And so making sure that from the beginning, one of the biggest things I try to share with them is like, please don't be me, be you, because we each have gifts that this world so desperately needs. And if I can help them find their gift, even if that ends up not being where I am, I'm okay with that. Because again, you can't put out and not give back. That came out wrong, but you know what I'm saying. You
Mm-hmm.
can't give, and it not come back. It will come back. So even if these people don't end up on being successful in direct sales, if I have helped them in life, um, become better people. But quite honestly, when people become better versions of themselves, they end up being good at this business because then they realize how it was never really about them to begin with. It was about all these other people. There are times, I'm not going to lie, because of who I am and how I built my business, there are times that I have wanted to quit network marketing completely because I can, because my husband makes enough, and because if I wanted to monetize outside of this, I could. But then I stop and think, you know what I can't really monetize outside of this? Like, yeah, I could go over to my blog and I could put links to everything that I recommend for free to all these people. And I could instead get an affiliate link for all of those things and I can put them on my blog. And you know what doesn't? I'm not getting paychecks in the thousands of people's hands underneath me if I do that, right? And so that's a very unfulfilling, does see what I'm saying?
It
Like it's
does, and
so
it's the equivalent I give is for all the people who do like a funnel filling service stuff. I have a very good friend of mine who's a blue check influencer, and he's suggesting I have a whole YouTube channel dedicated to free teaching of network marketing content. I don't care who you're with, I really don't. And he's like, you got to monetize that, you got to teach classes, this, that, and I'm like, yeah, no, I can't, because there is that pay it forward value. And there is that, well, if I'm going to do a transaction one and done, teach you how to do stuff, and then not continue that journey with you, yeah, it's not really putting my skill set to use and growing personally so that I can pay it forward. But I'm not doing more for them that I can benefit later on, either financially, or energetically wise down the road as well, too. Network marketing, it's personal development disguised as a business. It
yeah, it is.
truly is. I don't know how many people you've experienced that maybe they didn't air quotes make it in the business, but their personal business increased because they went through the process of developing skill A and B and
Right.
C.
Or their marriage or their
Right.
friendships or their right parenting. I mean, so much of why I'm a good leader in my um, business is because of the parent that I am, because parenting has been a passion of mine of like really raising like incredible world changing humans. And when I bring that same, and not like a weird motherly, because I respect my toddlers. Like I believe all humans deserve respect, and I respect my entire team, no matter their age or value or what they're bringing. Like I genuinely respect and love people, and when you treat them that way, yeah, it comes back. And just like what you're saying, that pay it forward, it will come back to you. And when we can get out of that, people fail because they are caught up in that loop of panic and poverty. And if they lose this sale, or this person, or if this person isn't ordering, or you know what I mean? And if you can just step outside of that, and because once you find that place of gratitude, and you genuinely hang in that space of gratitude, of knowing whatever is meant for me will come to me, and wherever I'm meant to be, I will end up, of course, while working along the way, but genuinely you feel that at your core, the people will come, and you will find success. And then you can let go of all of that panic, right? That panic of, are people ordering? What is my GV at the end of this? You know what I mean? Like all those things that run through your head, and that, leveraging relationships, which just feels gross, right? When your friends are in your business, and like, it's so different when you can hang in that genuine space of gratitude, and it does take practice.
I want to talk about problems and solutions in a second, but I want to go back to something you said earlier about how, like, it's if some people just want $500 a month, that's it. It blows me away at how the anti-MLM community constantly talks about how so many people fail, until you just said it. If you come in the business and you're making $500 a month indefinitely, that is success in my book, any day of the week and twice on Sunday. You got groceries, you got gas, you got a car a payment right there. So leading into that, I want to talk about problems in the industry, because one of the problems in the industry is it seems to only attract those who are willing to sell the dream of being a millionaire, when not everybody wants that. What are some problems that if you had the Empress staff of power and you could change everything, what are some things in the industry you would like to change on our end that we do?
Yeah, valuing that person who wants 500 would be huge. If you can switch it to where the value is not based on your rank or even your pay, and genuinely see the value of what your people actually need, right? Because, man, I've seen that so much. That's, again, one of the things that made me want to leave direct sales. And I'm a truth speaker above all else. That is what I am. That's what I do, is I speak truth. And it's always been easy for me because I've always been at the cool kids table, if you want to say, or I've always been invited, right? And so it's really, but it's always gross to be invited to it and then sit back and watch who's not invited. Like and that's always been a big turnoff to me. So like, I'd rather not even sit there, right? If
it's a Mean Girls Club. It's like a Mean Girls Club. It's ridiculous.
It totally is. Yeah, it totally is. And so it's a really gross place to be. So I've had to remind myself over and over, you get to create your team and your atmosphere and your people. And what do you want out of this? And I'm surrounded by people who want that same thing. And we're all determined to change the industry and to bring this genuine, opposite, it's abundance mindset, right? Opposite of that panic, poverty, and where your value is so much more than whatever you even bring to me monthly or whatever, right? I don't care about that. And when you can do that, even with people, like I'm just so crazy blessed, even with the relationships in my life, because of that stance alone, because my people know I love them. And I have the highest retention in my company by far, especially at the level I'm at. I'm surprised they don't ask me more about it, honestly. I think it's because I'm such an anomaly. But I have very, very high retention because I have made that known from day one, that I love you guys and I'm here for you. And another side thing, this little side fact here, I actually signed in my very first company, I signed with my sponsor. I was like the sixth person to sign under her. But I did nothing with that business for almost 3 years, like nothing.
Very common.
I was actually off social media. Yeah,
very common.
So to remember that, right? Like I remember that. I'm like, if it's not your time yet, it's not your time yet. But I'm here when you're ready, right? And I'm here that when it finally clicks for you, I'll be here, right? And we'll grow this.
Talk about that for a second, because that is such an abused statement, right? I love my people. It's how do you, is that action? Is that a feeling? What is that? I mean,
Yeah.
is that, do you just bring people in and go, I love you, and then, oh,
Okay,
Ricky, I
cool.
had a bad day and I'm not going to do anything? Or is it, are you talking about you love them through action, where you're doing, explain what that is, because
Okay,
so many
yeah.
people say that. I mean, I can't tell how many mentors I've had where I love all of you guys and blah, blah, blah. You love
You're
me.
so right. And
You,
I'm really glad you asked that because you're so right. No, they message me about things completely unrelated to the business and where I can help them. And I answer, I always answer. I make time for them. There's things I'm not great at. You said I was structured earlier, and I'm structured in a way, but I'm also I'm a super chill person. So I'm not great at organization. I laugh about that a lot. And I'm like, look, if I can make it, you guys can make it, because I'm not super organized. So there are things that I'm not great at in my business, right? And so in those areas I'm not great at, I try to have the people that are really good at it come up and help me, like create events or create trainings or whatever. I'm amazing on stage or training or on the phone with people, or I'm amazing if you have a health issue or a personal issue that you need to come up, and I will answer you. I do lots of giveaways in my own group. Like I give a lot of money away in my own group, and that sounds really weird, but it's just one of my things. We've always been really generous. I love doing it, but not just for them to keep. So in December, this is our second December to do it. We have our 12 days of giving. So as a group, we go out into our communities, and even if it's something as simple as like buying your cashier a candy bar, giving a homeless, like whatever, like holding the door for someone, like very actionable things to where you're thinking of other people the entire December. I send prizes out to people every single day. We draw names. And then at the end of it, I draw 10 grand prize winners and give them each $500 that they can then turn around and give to a family in need. Because so many people also don't know what it feels like to give, to genuinely be able to give money. And that's been a big mindset shift for people too, because
that's
giving is
powerful. It's powerful.
Yeah, it is. And it's very addictive they're not just getting it for themselves. They're actually getting it and turning it around and finding a family in need in their neighborhood or in their whatever. And they're going and changing Christmas for that person with right? Like, so that's really, that's another thing that we do as a
So
group,
the love
right?
that you're giving your team is action, which is so, again, my skin used to crawl when I had an upline leader who would always say, I love you guys. And I'm like, you don't answer the phone when somebody calls for a three-way. We don't hear from you until we call you. Love is action. I mean, I had a hard time with that, right? Being a faith-based Christian, it's like where Christ says you got to love your enemy I don't got it. Then it's like, wait a minute, it's not a feeling. It's action. So that means if my enemy who I can't stand, maybe if he needed a bowl of soup, I may hate his guts, but I'm going to lovingly make him a bowl of soup because that's what I'm supposed to do. So it really seems like with your team, I think what you have a very, very good grasp on is you have a household of 8 children. Being a mom, you don't let your kids get away with stuff. There is love and discipline. So you are definitely teaching that love through action with your team, and that is teaching them. It really is the benefits of paying it forward, and it does change you really internally. I want to hear about your views on when negative comes your way, right? Here's Ricky, who's running her team. She's kind. And Dominic's on her team. And you've said, hey, let's get you to go to the top because I've told you I want to go to the top, but I'm not making calls. I'm not doing anything. And every time you call, I kind of avoid you. And how do you deal with me? Especially if I blow you off for 6, 7, 8 months or 3 years, and then it is my turn, and then I come to you. How do you know whether or not I'm worth investing your time into? And does that hurt you, or does that bother you?
Not a lot bothers me. And even like on my social media, I've set my life up in such a way that I don't have time for negative. And even being who I am, like my Instagram was shadow banned really heavily for the past 2 years because of the whole vaccine, blah, blah,
Mm-hmm.
blah. So I just moved my stuff, pretty much on Facebook for a while. And I unfollow anybody who does not bring me joy or bring me value. I do not argue online ever. Someone comments something nasty, I literally just delete it and move on. Like, I don't have time for any of that. So, and I'm pretty intuitive. So if you were to come to me, I think I'd intuitively be able to know whether or not you're serious, right? I mean, we've got to use those, right? You've got to use your intuition in these kind of situations. So I don't blow people off by any means. I would attempt to work with you again. And I work with people, I'm not an idiot. I'm not going to get burned over and over by any means. And I do know how to balance my time, meaning, I because I do get so many messages a day, I have to structure who I'm answering first, right? Obviously. But when it goes back to even what I do for my team, right? Like for my team, if they're messaging me and asking me something that's really important to them, my uncle was just put in the hospital for this. And again, it's totally unrelated to my business. Yeah, I answer, or I'm on the phone with them, or I'm whatever. That's the value I bring to them. So outside of my company, because again, there's things I fail at. There's things I'm not great at. But in this way, the reason they're not leaving me is because I've shown them that it doesn't really matter what they do for me. Like I love them all for who they are. Like I not, you know what, now that you've said that, I'm really kind of grossed out by the word love too.
Mm-hmm.
I value them where they are.
The way that you've expressed it several times, it was very clear to understand how you use it. It's a ton of other people out there. I'm going to toot her horn again. Like Jessie Lee is a massive giver in the industry, right? You're a massive giver in the industry. My friend Claude is a massive giver in the industry. So when somebody says like, I love you, it's a love of action. It's not a love of, hey, I appreciate what you did for me for my paycheck and I love you guys. And oh, look, so-and-so said they love me. So I'm going to keep, on their team, because that's what a lot of it is. Because a lot of people just don't know how to teach. I want you to teach me something. So we're gonna do something I've never done before on a podcast, which is one of my biggest problems is it is in the realm of meeting people where they are. I come from a competitive wrestling background, law enforcement, and teaching martial arts. So that meant didn't matter if sergeant told you to do something, you did it. If coach told you to do something, you did it. If Sifu told you to do something, you did it. So when I teach that way in either coaching wrestling or when I was, in any type of position for law enforcement or for martial arts now, it's this has to get done. These are expectations. Well, in network marketing, people don't work for us. We work for them. That's really how it goes.
Yeah.
And I have been very much under the bane of the last several years of having a team where I want my team to feel the passion. And if I say, hey, how's everybody doing today? And I got a chat full of 100 people and 3 comment, I'm doing great. And the other 97 don't. It is like, all right, I want to pack up and move on. How does somebody meet the level of what other people are at without losing their own personal drive and direction and passion for it? How do we basically not let the crabs pull us back down in the bucket?
So, a lot of times it's not even crabs. And I think parenting is what helped me here. Realize that, as I was going through that, I have these these humans are so different. They're so different. And my parenting is different with each of them. So if you don't think that your leadership needs to be somewhat different with each of your people, right? I mean, it has to. You have to know what makes people tick, and then you meet them there. That, I believe, is the sign of a really good leader. We can all motivate people that are just like us, right? But again, that's kind of what I was saying at the beginning, even when you were talking about even religion. Like, I don't want a team full of people who are just like me. Like, I want to attract a whole bunch of people, right? Of all different everything. I want to attract it all. And then it helps grow me as a person, even learning how to deal with those people. And so, right. I mean, like, some people need that hand holding way more. It might gross you out to have to, something you would never need, but they need you to do for them. And especially until they build their self-worth. And you know what? I think that's a huge part of the whole anti-MLM thing. Like all of those people, I feel sorry for so many of them, because the thing is, and even people when they come to you and they say, I'm too busy or whatever, they give you these excuses. Those excuses are never the real reason. The real reason is they genuinely don't think they can, right? And what a sad place to come from. And that's most of our population. They have such programming that they're not going to be successful, right? So that's what I want to help bring out of people, right? Knowing their worth and their value outside of whatever else. And it does take different approaches for sure.
There's always room for improvement. And that's where I'm at in my journey on this is I can't believe when you go to some of these events, you see people in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s who still don't have self-worth. And I guess I got blessed. I had a mother who literally beat the self-worth into us, right? And it was really tough love. It wasn't pleasant, but there was nothing I did that I wasn't going to be the best at. And that, call it ego, call it drive, but I knew what my intent was. So I have this hard time believing that, how are you 50 something years old and you're on this person's Zoom call and you've been with the business for 4 years and next year I'm going to be a blah, 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 and you don't even move. It's self-worth.
Yeah, so listen, I'm telling you, so when we want to go back to the whole Joe Dispenza trainings and stuff, this is what blew my mind. When I started reading and understanding and doing all of that training, when you realize that your programming, 90 something percent of your programming was done before the age of 7. So that's a big relief for a lot of people. If you can tell people that up front, look, the programming that was put into you was put into you before you were 7. You don't have a lot of control over it. And even then, even when knowing is the first step, but then changing that subconscious, they do want to be up there. They genuinely do want to be on stage. You think that drive and that want at that time, at that event isn't real? It is real. But to overpower that programming is work. And it does take, again, you know what? The easiest place to start is that gratitude, that 5 minutes, because that's when your brain is actually in the most moldable, but at that time when you're just waking up and the time when you're just going to sleep, your brain waves are at the most moldable, shapeable, versus also being like, whether you were in like being hypnotized, right? Being hypnotized also can make you have fast results if you found somebody you trusted. But otherwise, it's continually shifting and changing that subconscious. So I tell people that, what are you struggling with the most? Because that's what you were programmed, right? That poverty mindset, that's a programmed deal right there. Your self-worth, it's programmed. Could be parents. It could be one little kid at school. It could have been who knows what, but it's there. So now it's your job to figure out what's my programming and what can I do to change it? And again, that's a big relief for a lot of people.
Outstanding. It's rebelricky.com. That's your website. RIKKI, rebelricky.com. Rebel.Ricky on Instagram. If they love what you had to say today and they're like, I got to get more information, or if they want to wind up partnering with you, is that the best way to get hold of you, your website and your Instagram?
Yeah, sure. Or Facebook, old school.
Fantastic.
Either of those. Yeah.
All right. We got 2 minutes. Close us out on it's 5 a.m. I'm getting up. It's Chicago. It's cold. I don't want to be grateful. It's cold. It sucks. It's a gray day. I know it's going to be, I don't want to be grateful. Is it just a matter of shut up and just force yourself to do it? What do you suggest?
Before I even get out of bed, number one, if you're touching your phone before you go to sleep or when you wake up, that alone, I would slap you if I could. Don't do that. So when you're waking up and you're still in your bed, you just start to, and you have to have the feeling, that is what the change comes from, because that feelings are the universal language. That is, if someone comes up to you and says from high school and you both hated each other, he's like, so good to see you doing good. Doesn't matter what's coming out of here. You feel whether or not that's the truth, right? So creating that feeling first. This is also why vision boards work or whatever, because you're actually seeing it and you're able to feel it and envision. So the better you can get when you're laying there. And let me tell you, if this is hard for you, you've got a long way to go. If you cannot lay where you are and come up with things to be grateful for, your programming is pretty intense and you're going to have a long way to go. But that's a place to start. So before you get out of bed and before you go to sleep, the very last thing you need to be doing is, again, you should be going to sleep thinking of all you're grateful for. And whether this is parenting, weight loss, whatever, the last thing you're thinking is not how you failed upon the day, because again, what we focus on is what grows. So you focus on, if all you did was one thing right that day, focus on it and be grateful for it. And I promise you it will grow. If you can just throw out everything you think you're, failing at, and instead, or if you failed at something, find the humor in it and be grateful for what you learned. Something, right?
Self-deprecating humor. It's powerful. Ricky James, thanks for joining. We're going to have you back on because I'm going to have a lot more questions for you. Guys, thanks for joining again today. If you have value in this, please share it with somebody else out there. It's Rebel Rikki, RIKKI.com. Get a hold of her, and we'll see you guys in the next episode of the Bull of MLM Network Marketing Warfare.